I made a video a little while back before Persona 5 Royal came out in North America, stating that even though I pre-ordered the special edition for it like 6 months in advance, it was still technically a scam since the extra content could have just been DLC at half the price rather than being its own standalone re-release, even though it was nice to immortalize the extra content with a physical copy. However, after staying up way too late every night for the past month and pouring over 100 hours into this updated version of my favorite game of all time, I've gotta say that I no longer think it's a scam, but rather the original Persona 5 was the true scam all along, albeit one that I still had a lot of fun with. Why is that, you ask? Well, sit back in your favorite Steiner recliner, don't snitch on your neighbors regardless of how much bull milk they may or may not be smuggling, press the subscribe button if you haven't already, and allow me, the fastest two-armed man who lives in my bedroom, Cameron all one word, to tell you why the original Persona 5 was way more of a scam than Royal. Alright, so I know it's kinda weird to call the original Persona 5 a slight scam when I spent over 100 hours in that game as well, and enjoyed it enough to consider it my all-time favorite game. But seeing as I played the game right after I finished Persona 4 Golden, I couldn't help but notice that something rubbed me the wrong way. You see, in Persona 4 Golden, the story starts you off in April and lasts until March of the next year, which is the same as the base Persona 4. However, the difference is that in Golden, you actually play through most of January and February instead of just skipping straight to March. So after already playing Persona 4 Golden, I thought that surely this extra month of gameplay was an improvement for the franchise and would just be a series staple going forward, much like how commanding your allies in battle is. However, after 100 glorious hours of Persona 5, the game skipped right from January to March with a pit stop that lets you bang your waifu, of course, and it was in that moment that I realized that I'd been had, and that this game was the incomplete version that'd be rendered obsolete sooner than later. But as far as Persona 5 Royal goes, though, some people say that the game's got $60 worth of extra content, but now that I've actually played it for myself, I can assure you that these extras are not worth charging $60 for. I mean, it will still take you at least 100 hours to play through the game again if you're not skipping all the cutscenes. However, most of the added story elements are at the very end of the game, so if you've already played through the original and you just want to see most of the new stuff, then you're gonna have to redo everything all over again, and it's for that reason why I consider the base game to truly be the slight scam, because even though it was still initially fun to play through, it ultimately ended up being a waste of time thanks to the missing canonical story elements. I mean, if you think about it, the base Persona 5 is really just a glorified tech demo of an incomplete game that was sold for $60, whereas Royal's the actual finished game that we should have gotten in the first place. But rather than taking more time and perfecting Persona 5, Atlus decided to release the first draft knowing that hardcore fans would cough up another $60 later on. Again, I had more than $60 and 100 hours worth of fun playing through the base Persona 5, but when the game skipped from January to March and I realized that there was going to be an updated version coming later on, I lost all desire to play through the game again, and I kind of felt like I just wasted my time on the shit version since it was going to be obsolete at some point. And seeing as how I wasn't going to play through the base game again, knowing that the real version was coming at some point, then what should have been a 150 to 200 hour game was only 100 hours, which is obviously worth $60 considering how much I enjoyed all that time. But still though, since it wasn't the complete story, it still kind of felt like a waste. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not like the original story was contradicted in Royal or anything like that, but the added content's still more than important enough to where I feel like I need to have experienced it. I mean, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but one of the big unanswered questions that the original story left you hanging with's resolved in Royal, and I don't know, I just kind of feel like things like that make the original game feel like kind of a waste. And not only that, but I feel like playing the first draft kind of ruined Royal for me a little bit since it spoiled most of the story, but rather than just waiting to pay $60 on the finished version, I was tricked into paying the same amount twice if I wanted to get the true experience. It's like, wow, Persona 5 was fun, and then Atlus came up to me and said, well, screw you, buddy, that's not the real game, this is the real one, give me money. And look, obviously no one made me buy Royal. I did so of my own free will, and the updated mechanics with added confidants gave me enough variety to make playing through the game again feel fresh, and I did thoroughly enjoy it from start to finish. But even so, I still can't shake this feeling that Atlus was dishonest with me, because I'm 100% convinced that they knew damn well that they were going to re-release this game later on to milk the fans for some more money. However, even though I don't think there's enough extra content to justify charging $60, the entire game as a whole is easily worth it for someone who's never played the original. So if you ask me, I think that means that the base Persona 5 was the true scam all along, because it basically means that everybody who paid full price for that version got the short end of the stick and were either robbed of the finished product or forced to pay an extra $60. Again though, I can't stress enough that I still had a great time with the original game, so I'm not really mad all things considered, because with all the time and effort that went into making Persona 5, along with how much fun I had playing it, I could honestly say that Royal's worth $120. However, given the fact that game prices are set in stone these days, there's no way in hell that anyone would be okay with paying more than the standard retail price of $60, no matter how massive a game actually is, even if people didn't mind paying more for less in the past. So given the fact that it takes more time, money, and effort to make AAA games that can't cost more than $60, that means that we've got to deal with DLC or episodic releases of games in the case of Final Fantasy VII's Remake, rather than just getting one ultra-massive 400-hour experience or whatever. Sure, games like Grand Theft Auto are jam-packed with content and make more than enough money for Rockstar to justify charging $60, but even those games have DLC, so if you're making a game that's not guaranteed to shatter records, then it's honestly an inefficient use of your time and resources as a developer to make a game that's worth more than $60 when it'll make you just as much money either way. So unfortunately, given how much time, effort, and manpower it takes to make a AAA game, it kinda means that they can only be so good if $60 is the most they can charge for it, which unfortunately leads to companies using shady tactics to get away with charging more than $60, whether it be through unfairly priced DLC, or in Atlus's case, releasing a first draft of the game before rendering it obsolete with the real version later on. I mean, publishers have always released updated versions of video games in the past, but in the early days of the internet, where DLC just wasn't possible yet, it was actually pretty cool, especially when the bonus content didn't contain essential plot details. And since Atlus has been releasing updated versions of their games for so long without anyone complaining in the past when it made sense, nobody thinks to speak up now, even though DLC at a cheaper price just makes more sense these days. But you know what, I just couldn't help but notice it, and I can't stress enough that the point of this video is not to try to get anyone to boycott Atlus over releasing incomplete games or anything like that. I mean, after all, that'd make me a pretty big hypocrite seeing as how I happily paid for Persona 5 Royal. But since I know Atlus never misses any of my videos, I just kinda felt the need to let them know that they didn't trick me is all. And even though I had enough fun with the original Persona 5 to consider it my all-time favorite game until I played Royal, I honestly can't say that I don't regret playing it. Because I mean, rather than playing through the original Persona 5 and then Persona 5 Royal for $120, I would have much rather just played through Persona 5 Royal twice, or even just once for $60. So you know, it would have just been nice if Atlus made it clear right off the bat that Persona 5 was gonna get an updated version later on. Obviously, no gaming company would ever do anything that'd guarantee that they sell fewer copies of a game, but if withholding information's how you're trying to increase sales, then maybe you're doing something sketchy is all I'm saying. And I think it's patently obvious that Atlus knew damn well that they were gonna re-release the true Persona 5 at some point before they were even done with the first one. I mean, maybe at the time it was the only way a niche series like Persona could be profitable, getting the time and care it needed to keep the quality up. But now that the series is more popular than ever, hopefully Atlus just spends a little extra time to make one definitive version of Persona 6 with the full story in the initial release. Or, you know, at the very least, not release $30 worth of extra content and charging $60 for it, but since I prefer games being immortalized on physical media, I'd hope Atlus just gets it right the first time and sticks to non-essential content for DLC that doesn't affect the story. Well, you know, unless it's actually an entirely separate release as opposed to just being the same game with a little bit extra. But anyway, what do you think? Was the base version of Persona 5 a little shady? Was Royal the one that was shady? Or were neither of them underhanded in any way? Either way, vote in the poll, let me know what you think in the comments below, and as always, I'll try my goddamnedest to respond to everybody. But let me tell you, if there's two people who could easily beat the Hamburglar in a duel, then it would definitely be today's Patrons of the Day, Noah Linger and John Polish Impossible to Say. If you want to be badasses like these two, then consider supporting FU Game Crew on Patreon for loot boxes and all kinds of wacky rewards in the mail. And if you want to make cameos, then send pictures or videos of you rocking any FU Game Crew merch doing whatever you want as long as YouTube allows it, like these badasses you see before you. And as always, like and share this video if you want to help this channel grow, and if you want to prove that you're not down with registered sex offenders, then go right ahead and press that subscribe button if you haven't already. Also, I'm going to be streaming on Twitch at Cameron All One Word whenever I play games from now on, so feel free to come hang out and heckle me sometime. My name's Cameron All One Word, and I'll be back with more videos soon.
So I want to say thank you to your loyalty, thank you for your support.